everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. We're executives here, leaders in AI and FinTech. Today, we're going to be discussing, redefining FinTech, the sort of future of integrated payments and scalable solutions there for growth. We're very lucky, actually, to have the founder and CEO of Zyfton today, Marc Roberts. Marc, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
What beautiful part of the world are you in today?
In Utah.
Nice.
Yeah, based out of Utah and enjoying it here.
Nice. What a beautiful part of the world. You're a lucky man. I'm in the north of England here, Marc. I'm thinking I'm building an ark. We just got constant rain.
Might have to.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, the way this works for people who have not heard us before, we've got kind of 4 segments on here. We're going to talk about Marc's journey and vision for FinTech. We're going to talk about payment technologies, scaling and sort of strategic leadership within FinTech, and then also the future of FinTech and integrated payments going forward. So, Marc, in no particular order, right? Tell us a bit about your background and sort of career milestones. What led you to co-found Zyft?
Yeah, life does funny things to us. We all end up on our paths one way or the other. I'm actually a civil engineer, believe it or not. To my background, I got a degree in civil engineering, and I graduated in 2007, and I was doing development work and site plans, and then you remember the whole real estate market crashed, and
Yep.
a bunch of my clients couldn't get funding for their projects, and a lot of the stuff I was working on just kind of dried up, just came to a halt.
I remember this
And
well, Marc, by the
so,
way. Interrupt you. I had land in Ireland at the time, and it went from being worth a lot to being worth about 10%
yeah,
overnight. So I feel your pain.
yeah, yeah. So, I just come out of college, my engineering degree, and um, was working with a lot of real estate developers and different things here in Utah and builders and doing site plans, working with cities, and everything just stopped. So uh, had to still, figure out what I was going to do and um, feed my family and my young family at the time. And I had some friends that were doing this payments thing. I had no idea about it, did not know how it worked or anything, and
Mhm.
just started working with them a little bit and getting involved. They had a little ISO. We started selling merchant accounts, and it was working. I enjoyed it. There was, a lot of interesting things, to do, different businesses, problems to solve every day. And so worked there for a while. Helped build that company, that ISO, that payments company. Learned a lot about it, the industry, and from there, about 2015, realized, after being in it for a while and never going back to engineering, civil
Right.
engineering, and realized, hey, I kind of like this payments thing, and um, I I could see things shifting a little bit. Payments were going to be more embedded into the business management systems and the tools people are using to run their businesses.
Mhm.
SaaS got really big in the 2000s and continued to grow, and more companies started using SaaS, you know, products,
Mhm.
really business management systems to run their business. And, from there, it made sense. It just made sense that payments should be part of that.
Mhm.
And so we started Zyft, one of my friends and partners with the other company. We started Zyft and just started growing it from that vision and that idea, around 2016-ish, just slowly. We had the other ISO running at the same time, and we slowly separated for that over time. And here I am, former civil engineer, now a fintech entrepreneur, I guess.
Fantastic. Well, you're still building stuff. It's just tech now, isn't it?
There's a lot of the same things, problems to solve, tech, solutions. You got to come up with a lot of the training I received as a civil engineer, applies, for what I do now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, share a bit with us about your vision for the payments landscape and how Zyft aligns with that.
Yeah, I think payments is interesting, and I think we're going to continue to see a lot of changes. I think cash is going to continue to become more obsolete. Quick
Mhm.
example of this, my kids some of my younger kids, 12, 14, my daughter, she babysits for the kids in the neighborhood. They pay her in cash. She hates
Mhm.
it. And she comes home and she's like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. And so she gives it to us and she says, will you put this in my Greenlight card? And so Greenlight is another fintech that issues debit cards for kids. And it allows parents to have all kinds of control and, you know, um, oversight on it. It's a great product. Shout out to Greenlight here, I guess. Another fintech. And we can put money on their card. We can help them control their spending, do savings in it, add chores where they earn things and unlock more money. And so she's like, here, take this cash from me. I don't know what to do with it. Put it on my Greenlight card. And she's going to McDonald's. They opened a McDonald's in our small town the other day, and she's there all the time. And she wants to go down to it. And she says, Dad, will you put some money on my Greenlight card? I'm like, well, you just got paid for babysitting. Just take the cash. And she says, well, I don't I got to go up to the counter to pay. And I was like, yeah, you go to the counter, you order, and you pay. And she's like, I don't like that. I've got a McDonald's app on my phone, and there's the kiosk. And she just goes and sits at the kiosk, orders on the kiosk, doesn't talk to any McDonald's worker, gets
Yeah.
the points on her little McDonald's app,
Yeah.
and they bring her and gets a little card and they bring her the food. And I'm like, just take the cash and pay. And she just couldn't you know, she couldn't figure it out. But I think that's the future, right? I think more and more stuff is going to go that direction. Frictionless, cashless,
Mhm.
tap everything, right? My kids figured out how to put the Apple Pay wallet and set it up on their phones.
Mhm.
You know, my dad has no idea how to do this. And I keep telling him, and he wants to swipe his card everywhere still, and he's got a wad of cash in his wallet. So I just think that's the trend we're going to see. And from Zyft's perspective, we support our software platforms and the businesses we work with to be able to accept payments that way and in as frictionless a manner as possible.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's a generational thing. I'm nodding it as I'm smiling here. I'm a 61-year-old man. I grew up in Ireland, and we love cash because we didn't have any. And you kind of
Yeah,
felt good right when you had a sort of wedge there,
yeah,
with the money. And I remember years ago selling a property, right, and a guy gave us a deposit, right, and it was £20,000 in a plastic bag. It was the most money I'd ever seen in my life, and I wanted to guard this
wow.
with my life. Unfortunately, the deal fell through, and we had to give him the money back. I was heartbroken. But it's funny, I've got a
Oh
23
man,
son, got a 19-year-old son, and they're
yeah,
exactly like your kids, right? They just see cash as a hindrance. They see it
yeah,
as a security problem. They don't want to get mugged or whatever it may be. And for them, they're just happy to
yeah,
use their phone or swipe everything. So you know what? I think they're dragging me
yeah,
into the future here with them. Mark, what about
yeah.
unique challenges, that you've faced in shaping Zyft? And, what have they taught you about leadership?
Yeah, it's hard to be an entrepreneur and start a business and grow it and scale it. It's not for the lighthearted, I would say, but it's fun. It's challenging. I like those challenges. Yeah, and early on, it was difficult making everything work. We are privately owned. We don't have any outside funding.
Very good.
We've done this all on our own. And meanwhile, watching our competitors raise tens of millions of dollars, and we're able to compete and keep up. Um, I remember the first 3 to 5 years. I think I read that book. I don't know if you've read it, "The Hard Thing About Hard Things" by Ben Horowitz.
No.
Um, Great book. He was with Netscape early on, Mark Andreessen and that crew, and just going through the dot-com bubble and that whole time period for the late 90s, mid 2000s, so much change happened, and he was right in the middle of all of it with a bunch of things and building and scaling companies. And so he's got this book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And yeah, there's hard things. And it just helped me along the way remember, okay, you can do this. It is hard, and here's ways you can manage the hard things.
Mhm.
Also make sure, finding balance in your life and whatnot. So, we like to approach, the difficult things head on, be transparent, and just deal with them.
Mhm.
Um, and it's kind of how we've grown, and the people we work with, and the employees we have.
Yeah, I think honesty, what you're talking about there as well, because not every day is a good
Yeah,
day. And I'm pretty old
yeah,
now, and I remember .com, and obviously now everything to do with AI and robotics. And I've seen, take for example, a year ago it was a lot easier to raise funding than it is now. And obviously
yeah,
money's just wars around the world, an element of uncertainty, etc. And but as you get older, you realize they're just peaks and troughs, and you've got to kind of work your way
yes,
through. So that's
yeah.
just the way it is. Listen, it takes us into sort of second segment really, which is about innovation and payments technology. So how does Zyft's approach to integrated payments enhance the user experience and sort of operational efficiency?
Yeah, our primary client is your business management system, your software platform, and we help them enable and extend payments to the users of their software platform. And historically, it's really been like um, a fragmented space. When the payments are involved, you'd have your software, you manage your business, and now you want to collect payment from your client, and you have to jump over here through these different companies and trying to figure out your deposit that you get in your bank account, and matching it up with your clients that, okay, I know I sent out these invoices, it says those transactions went through, now I got this chunk, this deposit in my bank account, but how does this tie back together? And I'm working in these other systems to manage it all. We try to help the software company put all of this in one place, one stop shop for their clients, their users. Everything's becoming embedded nowadays. It's not just payments. There's a lot of other things that are being embedded in software. And, for a while, and there's still software companies out there that they want to become the payments company. They want to monetize payments. And I think some of them realize, and we've had some that have said, no, we're just going to go do this ourselves and figure it out. And they've come back to us and said, all right, let's partner with you. And so we help them look like payments companies without being the payments company. We've got, relationships with banks, compliance and everything. And then our whole goal is to make it as seamless as possible for them to onboard their users and help them get set up so they can accept payments through the platform, and then be able to reconcile it back, especially for small businesses. It's a big deal, right? Being able to track back, hey, I sent out 5 invoices, did I actually get the money for these invoices?
Yeah.
And we can bring all this information very seamlessly back into the platform so they can see it all and verify it all and manage everything from one place.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that myself, even as a small businessman, because I have a recruitment business, I've got a property business, and obviously all I want to know is I want to make sure I'm getting paid, but I want to spend minimal time doing that because I want to do my day
Yeah.
job rather than be an accountant. So I totally get it. So look, payments as a service in particular, what sets Zyft apart then from your competitors, do you reckon?
Yeah, it's more than just embedding payments into a software platform. So that's why we started calling it payments as service years ago, instead of integrated payments, or PayFac or different things. And that's our approach: is make it as seamless as possible for the payments to be embedded. So and then provide that behind the scenes service and support to those software companies so that they can look and act like a payments company without
Mhm.
actually having to be the payments company, which
Mhm.
requires them to jump through all kinds of compliance hoops, manage compliance on a yearly basis, make relationships with banks,
Mhm.
certifications, with processors. If you want to, add terminals to your suite, there's a whole level of complexity with EMV and, just managing all that.
Mhm.
So we manage all that. It's kind of, manage services, support, compliance, and then
Mhm.
provide the payments piece on the front end for our clients to just embed in their software and make it seamless as possible.
And what about customer size as well, Mark? It sounds like you've got like an SME version, maybe a corporate version as well. What would a small customer be, and what would a big customer be?
To us, the customer really is the software platform.
Yeah.
Um, the end user of that software platform is a business, and
Mhm.
they'll get a merchant account um, through that software platform with us to process payments. Um, but we really look at the software platform as our client. So we work with all sizes. Some that have 5,000 users or more. And then others, maybe they're just getting started and they're trying to grow their SaaS business management platform. Maybe only have a couple hundred.
Mhm.
But we're there helping them grow along the way, helping them figure out how to onboard, new clients and get adoption within their user base to use the payments so that they
Mhm.
can benefit from the monetization of those transactions.
Right, makes sense. Look, what we're talking about really is scaling businesses now as well, and sort of strategic leadership. And I think you and I have had the conversation previously where I was saying, as a guy who works with a lot of early stage companies, particularly around AI, in my world, they kind of go through four stages. You've got sort of 10 people to get together, develop a product or a service, that kind of step one. Step two being when they want to build out their sales team and put some leaders in there, and then for step two. Step
Yeah.
three being we want to be the dominant player in the US, say. Step four being, we want to be the unicorn in the room. If you look at it, what's the importance of what strategies have helped Zyft scale effectively in a competitive fintech landscape?
It's getting the right people in place on the team as well. And we've tried to stay lean, and we've had to stay lean really as a bootstrapped startup without any outside funding. So we've had to make a lot of smart decisions along the way. We're also debt free as well,
Mhm.
and that's not easy to do and stay competitive at the same time. So we have a really good team. There's a lot of trust, loyalty within our team. Everybody knows we've got every each other's backs. We have people that wear several hats,
Mhm.
um, and still get the job done. And that's really helped us stay competitive, continue to grow, and stay innovative at the same time, and add more accounts and partnerships.
Mhm. Listen, how do you approach team building and talent management? Obviously that's my bag. That's the world I come from. And
Yeah.
a lot of it is about where you're trying to develop people's careers forward up into those leadership roles. Sometimes, they don't want to do it, or maybe they haven't got the right credentials, or things change. And often, I get brought in to find people from the direct competition or, from a particular market that you guys are trying to break into or whatever. But how do you approach team building then, and particularly talent management within Zyft?
Yeah, we're mostly remote. Um, and we were remote before COVID actually.
Mhm.
And we've stayed that way after. So it's a little bit different. You, I think you have to employ different strategies when you're mostly remote than when you're all in the office together.
Mhm.
I there's you can find all kinds of threads online about arguments, for both sides of this.
Yeah.
For us, it's worked. But it means you for us we make sure we touch base um, on a decent cadence, but not too much to interrupt workflow.
Mhm.
Um, and communication is key for us.
Mhm.
Staying on the same page with what's going on, the priorities within the business, and and then in terms of personnel growth, there comes a time you just have to you got to give people space, I
Mhm.
think, to do their job and to show them that you trust them.
Mhm.
Um, because that creates an environment where they can grow and excel and really exercise the talents that they have. And you'll find out really quick, if they meet the cut or not by
Yeah.
doing that. And so that's kind of what we've done is we give people space, try not to micromanage,
Mhm.
right? Build um, just an environment of trust and allow people to grow and have autonomy and
Mhm.
contribute.
Mhm. It's really interesting that whole remote argument, isn't it? Because our hand was forced really with COVID. But The last podcast I did, funnily enough, was with another fintech leader, and they're going like a train, growing really quickly, and they have no offices anywhere, and they've got staff all
Hmm.
over the world. So the upside for them is less overheads because obviously no
Yeah.
offices. Also, they can pick the best talent anywhere on the globe as opposed to being restricted to dragging people to the best
Yeah.
location. They have to manage it a little bit in terms of some of the juniors. They obviously spend more time with them to make sure they're learning. But certainly in terms of the senior people, right, it just gives them carte blanche really in terms of bringing in top talent. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, Look, last segment, Mark. What about the future of fintech and integrated payments? What trends are there in fintech and integrated payments? What do you believe will have the most impact in the coming years?
Yeah. I think so. Going back to the very beginning of our discussion, I think you're going to see a um, more growth with NFC. With Apple opening up the iPhone to NFC, development. I think you're going to see like tap to everywhere, tap to everything. People's phones are going to become um, a verification device as well.
Mhm.
You might see situations where your phone turns into um, a two-factor verification for an e-commerce transaction online, and you get a push notification for your phone to then tap your card to your phone, verifying, hey, you actually do hold and own this card for this transaction you're making online.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think you're just going to see broader adoption and innovation within this area of NFC on the devices. Um, One thing that I've got my eye on is this Capital One and Discover
Mhm.
uh, acquisition, and if the DOJ lets them actually do it,
Mhm.
that's going to be really interesting. I have a Capital One Visa card. I don't know how Visa feels about Capital One now buying Discover and what that's going to look like, but it could shake things up a little bit. I like competition. I think it could be healthy for the market, but we'll see what the DOJ says on this. But another thing too with embedded payments, one of the biggest challenges is onboarding and making sure the person who is signing up is a real person and is
Mhm.
actually the person um, that they say they are.
Mhm.
So maybe this is some more boring stuff behind the scenes, but it's actually important. In two ways. It's preventing fraud. So there's this fine balance of making signing up as frictionless as possible
Mhm.
while making sure you have the actual person.
Mhm.
And I think there's going to be some more innovation in that area. Some things like behavioral biometrics is some other things I'm watching.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've done the selfie, right, in the video thing. Pretty much
Yeah.
everybody's done that nowadays. But I think you're going to start seeing things where, this can't be something done on its own, but in conjunction with other verification points. How long did it take the person to type on the keyboard their name, right? And how long did they press the key or swipe? And does it look robotic and mechanic, or does it look like a human? And does this fit with prior behavioral characteristics of this user on this device interacting with your company? So I think you're going to see some more of that type of stuff, and that's always improving, and we're always having to stay ahead of that because fraud advances as fast as faster than we can keep up with it sometimes.
No, I'd agree with you. It's funny, again, somebody I was talking to on another podcast, and we're talking about cashless societies. And one of my sons is a soccer player, and we went to a big tournament over in Sweden a few years ago. And we were in Gothenburg, obviously, major city. They don't take cash. So everywhere we went, and there we were,
Huh.
having gone
Yeah.
out of our way to get our euros or whatever, whatever currency we needed. And they just said, no, no, we don't do cash. Now, obviously, you're thinking, well, when you have a power cut, you'll probably be really glad of this cash. But, for now, this is all good. But then tying
Yeah.
in with the previous person I spoke to, Mark, they were talking about cashless society, digital
Yep.
assets,
Yeah.
blockchain, crypto, that whole world. And then
Yep.
obviously with Donald Trump being re-elected, Elon Musk both coming out straight away saying, it's all about digital currency going forward. The price of crypto goes up to, $100,000, the highest it's ever been,
Yeah.
etc. So there's a definite wind of change coming, isn't there?
I think we definitely need to talk about that and watch that. Crypto is important. You got governments trying to figure out their own CBDCs,
Mm.
central bank digital currencies. I think the next stretch of all this is figuring out, is Bitcoin just going to remain a store of value for people,
Yeah.
or will it make its way to Main Street for people to really transact with on a daily basis?
Hmm.
And in order to do so, there's got to be companies like us and others that figure out how to make that last step possible and
Yeah.
as easy as possible, right? So you're not having to dig around for some wallet code signature, all kinds of stuff to make this transaction. So right
Hmm.
now, credit card, is still king in this area, but I think there's Visa cards that you can get that are tied into your crypto exchanges.
Right.
Coinbase has these, so
Right.
there's ways that we're getting there, and
Mm.
I think we're definitely going to see more growth with that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The conclusion we came to previously was it was all about regulation and compliance. Because at the moment, arguably we can do this. There's a sort of counter argument that says, why would the major banks give us the freedom to go there anyway? Because obviously,
Yeah,
it's them at the moment that we all pay our fees. But I'm sure in the background, right, that many of those banks have got blockchain and digital assets and,
yeah.
and crypto exchanges already set up, right? Because they know it's going to come, and it's probably just a matter of when. So, what about you guys? Where does that leave you in terms of exciting projects then, or initiatives in Zyft? How are you keeping ahead of that?
Yeah, so I mean, you got to keep up with all this and um, try to identify these trends. We have some fun stuff that we're rolling out the next year. We're working on the tap to pay ourselves.
Mhm.
We currently support tap to pay on Android. Um, in Europe, we're working on bringing that to the US in 2025 on iOS and Android.
Mhm.
Just trying to stay ahead of that. We also have some exciting stuff happening in Australia right now. We support software platforms and business management systems, and SaaS really knows no geographical boundaries. Really,
Mhm.
if you're a gym and you want to run your gym, your little fitness center, um, in Australia, you could use the same software that somebody's using in the US, right? And
Mhm.
so we have software platforms that are growing and partners that are growing, and they're growing into other regions. And so we're being there to support them and grow with them in those other regions. And we're looking at some projects in Australia right now that will allow us to support our partners and provide that reach, so that we can support them and their users, US, Canada, Australia, and different regions around the world.
Fantastic. Look, really interesting stuff, and it affects all of us, whether you're a consumer or whether you're a business person or whatever. Just in closing, really, I wanted to get your sort of final advice, really, for founders and leaders in the fintech space. I mean, you've gone there. You've been working hard at this for a few years. Any final advice that you would give anybody who is a founder or a leader in that fintech space or thinking on going down that road?
I mean, for any founders in general, um, just keep your head down. Uh, it's there, like you said at the beginning, there's good days, there's bad days.
Yeah.
There's a great proverb that was told to me one time during a stressful a few days of nothing related to our business, but something else I was involved in. And he just said, "Hey, this too shall pass." And all things in life do. And so enjoy enjoy the time, be innovative, don't slow down, and then make sure you do find that balance and you don't burn yourself out. Burnout is a real thing, especially with founders.
Yeah.
And so you really have to balance yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, as you're building.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's funny because anybody who isn't an AI founder, right, they all want to do it because obviously we think we can smell the money. But the reality is,
Yeah,
right, it's hard work. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it.
yeah,
And what's interesting, Mark, is I've spoken to enough leaders recently where they've said, you know what, it's lonely. People assume you've
yeah,
got all the answers. You're the guy at the wheel, right? So they're all looking to you. But
yeah,
communication is key, and I think getting that balance right in your life is absolutely correct. I'm an old soccer player, Mark, so I play football 3 times a week, and I don't play
yeah,
well, but I play all in, and I can have
yeah,
a day, but I know if I've got a game of soccer coming that evening, or I'm doing something with some of my kids or whatever, it just puts a smile on your face, doesn't it?
yeah. It does. Yep. Yeah, it's great.
Well, you've been brilliant, right? I mean, some really interesting stuff there for all of us. So really appreciate you coming on, right, and giving us your time because I know you're a busy guy.
No, I thanks. Thank you. I'm glad to do it, and I enjoyed the conversation.
Fantastic. Now, listen, say our audience, we've got about 20,000 execs on here, and they're either funders or founders or partners, companies looking to get involved or whatever. How can our audience learn more about Zyft and connect with you?
Probably the best thing is just our website. Start there, Zyft.io. You
Mm-hmm.
can find us on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anybody, have conversations that way as well. But probably just start with our website, Zyft.io, and go from there.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Mark, really superb today. I've enjoyed the conversation. And for any of our listeners here who've enjoyed this, we go out on Spotify, we're on Google, we're on YouTube. If you search up under Rare Executives, the leaders in AI, and just connect with us on there. And obviously, the more people we get on, right, the more interesting we can make this. So thanks to everybody for listening. And
Yeah.
thanks very much to you, Mark, for joining us.
Thanks, Maurice. It was great.
Take care.